The hidden science behind anorexia nervosa, effects on your body. Anorexia nervosa is not just about wanting to be thin. It is not just about dieting, and it is definitely not just about wanting attention. So, what is anorexia nervosa? It is characterized by the restriction of food intake, distorted body image, and an intense fear of gaining weight. It is a serious psychiatric disorder that changes how your brain, hormones, heart, and bones function. Anorexia nervosa most commonly begins between at the ages of 15 and 19, and globally, the burden of anorexia nervosa remains higher in females. However, recent data shows that the age standardization incidence rate is now increasing among males as well. It also has one of the highest mortality rates among psychiatric disorders. Therefore, I will be explaining what actually happens inside the body when someone develops anorexia and why early intervention is so important. Firstly, what causes anorexia nervosa? There is no single cause, as there are many influencing factors. First, biology. Research shows that eating disorders can run in families. The genes will influence how the brain chemicals function, and these brain chemicals include dopamine, which are involved in reward and motivation, and serotonin, which is linked to anxiety and behavioral inhibition. Second, psychological traits such as perfectionism and obsessive-compulsive disorder tendencies will increase the vulnerability. Third, social cultural pressures such as social media, dieting culture, and body dissatisfaction often act as triggers. And when these factors combine, this will cause the risk to increase too. So, before we can understand what actually goes wrong, let's learn about what usually happens in a healthy individual. In a healthy person, hormones that are regulated by the brain, such as leptin hormones, are released from the fat cells, and they will tell your brain when you have enough energy stored. Ghrelin hormones, which are released from the stomach, will stimulate hunger to let you know that you are hungry. Thyroid hormones will regulate metabolism. Reproductive hormones will regulate menstruation in females and testosterone in males. Cortisol levels affect stress. Brain chemicals such as dopamine creates reward signals, and serotonin, which will regulate mood and anxiety. All these hormones and brain chemicals are controlled by the brain, and specifically by the hypothalamus, a small but powerful part of the brain. They come and work together to keep the body balanced, as well as to maintain homeostasis in the body. When someone is suffering from anorexia nervosa, food intake will become severely restricted. The hypothalamus will interpret this as starvation and think that it is in danger. So, it will send signals to the rest of the body to activate and enter survival mode. Therefore, let's now look at what happens when the body enters survival mode. What happens to your hormones? The hypothalamus will be activated and it will adapt to be in survival mode. This causes a change in hormones. The endocrine axis will be suppressed, which is when leptin hormones decreases, as the brain thinks that the energy stores are empty. Since leptin is produced from fat cells, it will cause the fat stores to shrink. Ghrelin hormones levels become dysregulated, which will disrupt hunger signaling, causing dysregulation of appetite, metabolic health, and the body's energy balance. The effects of leptin and ghrelin dysregulation will suppress multiple neuroendocrine axes. These axes are the hypothalamic pituitary thyroid axis, where thyroid hormone T3 decreases as metabolism slows down to conserve energy. Hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis will also be suppressed, where reproductive hormones decreases, which may cause menstruation to stop in females and reduced levels of testosterone in males. When the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis becomes activated chronically, serotonin and cortisol levels will increase. This will cause depression and stress levels to increase respectively. Therefore, in summary, when leptin decreases and ghrelin signaling become dysregulated during prolonged caloric restriction, multiple neuroendocrine axes will become suppressed. The body enters a true energy deficient state and it will remain in survival mode. This will eventually result in metabolic slowing, hormonal suppression, and enhance anxiety-like behaviors. These changes are adaptive survival mechanisms of the body. However, if it is prolonged, it will become pathological. These hormonal changes will further cause the brain chemicals, dopamine and serotonin levels, to be dysregulated. This will increase anxiety and starts to make weight loss feel more rewarding. This will eventually create a dangerous feedback loop. So, in summary, starvation leads to the temporary anxiety reduction. This will further reinforce food restriction as it feels more rewarding, which will further starvation. Hence, this explains why anorexia becomes self-sustaining. Now that we understand what's happening with the hormones, let's now move on to look at what this means for the organs in the body. Because anorexia nervosa involves starving yourself for a long period of time, the body will start to break down its own tissues for energy, and this will in turn lead to structural and systemic consequences. And that includes muscles. So, what are the effects on your heart? With prolonged starvation, the body will start to break down muscle for energy. And since the heart is a muscle, if the overall muscle mass decreases, this will also mean that the heart muscle will decrease in size. And this is known as cardiac muscle atrophy, specifically left ventricular atrophy. At the same time, thyroid hormone levels will drop, and this will result in a very slow heart rate, feeling dizzy when standing up, and low blood pressure. And in serious cases, this might even cause dangerous heart rhythm problems or irregular heartbeat. This is why anorexia nervosa can become life-threatening. Next, let's move on to look at what happens to your bones. Teenage years are when the body will build most of its lifelong bone strength. However, when someone is suffering from anorexia nervosa in their teenage years, reproductive hormones that protect the bones will be impaired and affected negatively. Hence, this will make the bones weaker and more fragile. And over time, this can lead to an increase in the risk of early osteoporosis. This means that the bones are brittle and can break even more easily. Some of this bone damage may become permanent if it's not treated early. Lastly, let's now look at the effects of your brain. The brain also needs proper nutrition to function well. When there is prolonged periods of restriction of food intake, the body is exposed to prolonged malnutrition. This will cause some parts of the brain to temporarily shrink. Effects of this will cause memory problems or memory loss, trouble concentrating, and it might even worsen anxiety and depression. The good news is that in early stages, these changes can be reversible with early treatment and proper nutrition. Now, let me summarize how the symptoms will actually link to what is happening inside the body, as every symptom has a biological reason behind it. Severe weight loss happens because the body breaks down fat and muscle for energy. Loss of menstruation in female and low testosterone in males happens because the body shuts down hormones to conserve energy. Slow heart rate happens because metabolism slows down and the heart muscle weakens. Dizziness may occur because blood pressure will drop. And there will be an increase in anxiety because the brain chemicals will become unbalanced. Furthermore, restrictive eating can start to feel more rewarding because the brain reward system will be dysregulated and it will change. So, anorexia is not just in someone's head. It affects the brain, hormones, heart, and bones. Each symptom directly reflects the disrupted cellular or hormonal function. Therefore, it is not so easy to just stop. Anorexia nervosa is a full body disorder. In conclusion, the key message is this: anorexia nervosa is not a choice or a lack of willpower. It is a serious medical condition that affects both the brain and the body. Understanding the science behind it helps reduce stigma and highlights why early recognition and treatment are so important, as it is an ongoing serious problem worldwide, affecting all youths. It is crucial to remember that recovery is possible. The most important part is early intervention, especially in teenagers, when they are more prone to this psychiatric disorder. So, if you or someone you know is struggling, reaching out for help early can protect your heart, bones, brain, and your future, as recovery is possible.